Hi everyone, in this video we're going to be taking a look at Sonarworks reference 4. Sonarworks is a room calibration software. So what that means is we can use a microphone to take measurements in our room of how our speakers sound. So we open the software on our desktop, we run the calibration process. We are using a microphone such as this, a room measurement microphone. This is a Behringer ECM 8000, and it's designed to have a very flat frequency response across the entire spectrum. So you use this to listen, and you open the software on your computer. The computer will play frequency sweeps from, let's say, 0 hertz all the way through to 20,000 hertz. And we are listening to how they sound in the room with the microphone. And they combine that information together, and then they give you a graph. And on that graph, it shows us the frequency response of our room. And we can see where there are little dips and troughs in the frequency range. And that helps us flatten out our room, because then it offers us an EQ. We can take that EQ and we put it on the master output of Ableton. And then everything that we play through Ableton will get this EQ curve added to it. And we will hear our song in a more flat and balanced manner. And then when we're finished with our song, we're finished producing, we turn it off, and then we export our track and we send it away to the mastering engineer. So this is how we can achieve better room acoustics. It's not going to fix all of your room problems. In fact, it's not fixing the problems at all. It's just adjusting the frequencies based on EQ adjustments. So it's not fixing anything. It's just covering up the problem. But getting some room treatments, some bass traps is a great measure, and in combination with reference 4, you will definitely get a really great sounding studio environment, even using budget studio monitors like my Yamaha HS7s. So I'm going to jump into the software and we're going to set it up together, and I'm going to walk you through the process so you know how to do it at home. When you open up the software, this is the window that you are confronted with. So we can come down here to settings and we can set it up. So I've got it on metric because I was born and raised in New Zealand and educated in New Zealand. We use the metric system. The measurement signal type, we'll just leave a default. Location fixing, we'll just leave that in fast, and we'll go apply. And then we can click calibrate your room. So we go through a checklist at the beginning. We need to make sure that we have phantom power turned on our sound card. So yes, phantom power is turned on for me. Direct monitoring from the microphone to speakers is turned off. So direct monitoring is if I had this microphone plugged in and my voice would go directly out the speakers. So I've got that turned off so that the microphone is not played through the speakers out loud. We're using a single audio interface for both the microphone and the output of the speakers, which I am. And the audio interface sample rate is set to 44,100 kilohertz, which it is. So we can go next. So this is the calibration profile for the microphone. So it has a little file that comes with the product that you buy. So Sonarworks sell their own XREF20 microphone, but you can use other microphones such as this one. Usually what you do is you download the file for the Behringer, and then you would add the file and you would open it up and you'd use that. I can't be buggered going and trying to find it. I've done it like 20 times before, so I'm just going to click reference grade. So it's more than enough to get an accurate measurement from the room, and then we can go next. Here it is just making sure that I've got my inputs and outputs set correctly, so you can see that there's signal coming through from the microphone. That's all good, and I've got that set up correctly. So next, now it's going to play a test to make sure that my output is set up correctly. So I'm going to go ahead and turn my monitors up a little bit and click play test.
Please adjust amplifier volume. My voice should sound in normal conversation volume. Left speaker. Right speaker.
Cool, so that's perfect. Let's go next. And now it's going to measure the microphone sensitivity. So when you are making measurements with this microphone, you do not point them at the speakers, you point it down the center of the stereo field. So you point it between your speakers at all times. So in my case, I'm always pointing it at the webcam because I've got my webcam directly between both of my studio monitors, and I'm creating an equilateral triangle. So speaker here. In the perfect world, I would be sitting more here, which would be about a meter. My speakers are a meter apart, and then that would be a meter to me. And in the future, I could probably set it up like that. I should get some speaker stands and put my speakers on some stands. But for right now, I'm not quite an equal distance as they are apart. When I'm taking the measurements, I need to have the microphone at about my ear height, which should also be at the height of like the middle between the bass driver and the tweeter. So that's about that height for me. And then I hold it here and it's going to test the sensitivity. So let's go ahead and check. So it's asking me to increase. Great, so it's taken the measurements it needs. Next, it wants me to place the microphone close to the mid-range driver on the left-hand speaker. So it wants it to be less than 15 centimeters from the speaker cone. So I hold it right up and close to the bass driver, and then you'll do the same on the other side. So let's get started with that measurement. So this technology really fascinates me. So it's sending through test tones from both of the speakers, and it's measuring from the time that the speaker makes the sound between the microphone picking it up. It's getting an accurate idea of the distance between the two speakers, and that just fascinates me. It's really cool. So next we'll do the right hand speaker. I'll hold it at the same distance from the right hand one. Next. So it's telling me that it's 1 meter and 2 centimeters apart. And I actually have measured it, and it's more like 95. So I'm just gonna change it to that. So you can fine tune to get it exactly correct. So I'll go next. And now it's going to locate my listening position. So I'm gonna move back a little bit. I'll just move my chair out of the way, and I'll press start. And it's complete. So it's telling me that I'm 60 centimeters from the speakers, which is about correct. I measured that earlier. And then it's giving me a idea of where my listening spot is and the dimensions of the listening spot. And for me, I think that's going to be okay. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the next part. So this is the tutorial where it's going to tell us how to measure correctly. So Basically, it's going to tell us that it should be held at ear height and that the microphone should always be pointed at the center, which I've mentioned already. And what was the final part? It's going to tell me the difference between the two signals. So when you hear this signal, it means move to the location that it's telling you to move to with the microphone. And then when you're in the right position, it's going to play this tone. Next. So I can go ahead and press start and we'll get into the measurements. So it's going to take 24 measurements in this area and you'll see how it works as I do it. And let's get into it. So we've taken all 24 measurements and we've completed the measurement phase. So if I click next, it's going to take us through to the page where it shows us the frequency response of the room. So this is our frequency response curve. And you can see that the dark blue line is referring to my left speaker and the light blue line is referring to the right speaker. And you can see that in particular, the main problem that I can see is these two dips and troughs here. So I've got a massive dip of about 9 decibels between 90 and 80 hertz. So there's a lot of content that I'm missing in this area. And then I'm also having things boosted just around 110 to 120 hertz as well. So I'm not getting a flat response from my low end at all. I've also got some problems around here which could interfere with the way that I am listening to vocals, because vocals typically lie in the 1,000 to 3,000 range. So I'm going to go ahead and save this curve. I'm just going to save it over the other one that I did before. Yes, I'll replace it. And now what we can do is we can jump into Ableton and we can open up the software in Ableton, and I can show you how that works. Okay, so I've got Ableton open. We can search for reference 4 and I can pull that into my master channel. And we can open up the correct calibration, which is that one. And then I can just turn this back to how it should look. So what we're looking at here is the target is orange, so that's where it ideally wants the frequency response to be. We've got the before and after, which we'll just hide for now, and then we've got the after left and after right with their adjustments. And I've currently got this set to flat, so I want it to be as flat as possible, but I can come in here and I can make custom adjustments as well. So I could do a bass boost or a bass cut, and I can do a tilt where I can tilt the low end up and the high end down, or vice versa. So I don't want to do either of those for now, so I'm just going to hide that. I can also do a predefined curve, so I can try and emulate the way that other speakers would work. So I can do that in here, and I can also do that in simulated. So what we are looking at is, if I turn the correction on, you can see what the EQ is boosting. So you can see it's cutting here, it's boosting here, it's also giving me a little boost here, and it's making all of these adjustments for the left and the right all the way through. and that is with the hopes of getting it as close to the target as possible. And if I turn the correction off now, and the target off, you can see that it has got this apparently extremely flat all the way across. And if I come over to advanced, you can see that there are a couple different filter types for the way that the EQs would work. So zero latency doesn't introduce any latency, but it doesn't use the best EQs and can sometimes introduce phasing. We've got optimum, which I think is sort of like a mix of both of them. So it brings in a little bit of latency, but potentially doesn't have as much phasing, I suppose. And then linear phase mode, which has about 45 milliseconds of latency. In the studio environment, if you're not recording, it doesn't matter too much whether you got a little latency, but that's up for you to decide. And it's got it pretty smoothed out. So we're only dealing with maybe plus 2 decibels on the hump and maybe negative 1 decibel there. So that smoothed it out pretty nicely. So here we have some limits that we can set for the maximum low frequency and high frequency. We can turn mono on, so we can listen to our mix in mono. We can A/B the calibration on and off, and it keeps it at the same volume, so you can really hear the difference. So that's cool to be able to A/B. Avoid clipping, so it's going to put a clipping protection on our output, so it's negative 9 decibels. And I just want to talk about what's essentially happening when we're looking at, if I turn the target off, if I turn the phase response off, if I turn the limits off, and I turn before on, what's happening is in these dips here, the EQ, oh well, I can put the correction on as well. The EQ is boosting huge amounts in here. And if we took these speakers out of the room and we listen to them outside, the speaker produces those frequencies. What the problem is the room. The room environment is creating these dips in the frequency response. So what we're doing essentially is we're just pumping a huge amount of energy into these frequency ranges in order to bring it up. So we're making that speaker work against the room. The room doesn't want you to hear those sounds just the way that the room is responding. But we're essentially saying, well, we're going to use fancy physics and technology, and we're just going to push as much in there as it takes to get it up to being flat. And that is making the speakers sort of work very hard, especially in this area. And also we're making it try its best to bring up the amount of low frequencies it's also pumping out. So the speaker is working a lot harder, so we shouldn't drive it as hard in terms of volume. So keeping this on is probably a very good idea. And then finally, you're able to also calibrate your headphones. So I've got a set of AKG 712 Pros, and these are great headphones, but they sound even tighter when you turn the calibration on. And you can control the filter type with the headphones as well. You can mono them as well. You can A/B to how it sounds with it on and with it off. And it's got the same clipping control, and that is Sonarworks. So why do I use Sonarworks? I use it because it helps me hear the music the way it should be heard. When I turn it on, the music is just so much more full. I feel like I'm getting like a proper thump out of the low end. And mostly what I notice in this room is the way that it improves my low end. I'm not generally taking too much notice, or I'm not noticing what it's doing to the high frequencies, but for the low end, it's definitely tightening things up, and it's giving me the content that I cannot hear usually. So it's helped me with kick and bass so much, and I think that that's really, for me, invaluable. I recommend it to everybody in a small studio, but like I said, still do some room treatment, and a combination of some good room treatment and this software is going to get your speakers sounding amazing. You should be more confident with your mixes. My mixes translate better onto other sound systems. I've heard a couple of my tunes that I made on a big rig and they sounded very good. So I have put links to Sonarworks in the video description. Jump over there, consider grabbing it and using it in your studio as well. I hope that this video was informative. I hope that you learnt some stuff more than just simply what Sonarworks does, but also a little bit about room acoustics. It's very important as a studio, as a music producer, to understand how your studios sound, and I really enjoy all of the aspects of audio. I really enjoy it from A to Z, so I'm really happy to be able to bring this content to you and educate you guys on this sort of thing. So thank you very much for watching. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it, leave a comment below, and I'll see you guys in another video. Thanks.